All right, everybody, I am super excited about today's episode. I'm here with two of my really good friends, and we are interviewing Ryan Gibson. He is an Ames native. He's been investing for about 7 years. He focuses on luxury rentals and high-end flips. He is a dad of two and a happily married man, and I'm super excited to hear his journey in real estate.
It'll be somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 renovation. I say
$60,000 kitchen.
And in a year and a half, we doubled the business, and then found out we really don't like to do that.
So what's the money? What's the deal?
So I guarantee there's people watching right now that are going to say, okay, this guy does all these remodels and he does it with his wife, right? So you guys got to get along at home, on the job. So have you guys, tell us a little bit about that. Is it easy to work with a wife or?
Yeah. I mean,
She will be watching.
Yeah.
for the most part, it goes really well. I think, honestly, the challenge is not necessarily, it's never been, the wife. I mean, we have disagreements on like her style sometimes. She's like, I want to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to be the way it would look good or want to do it. And she's like, no, like, trust me, it's going to look good. Like, that's what we have conversations about. Hey, trust me, I know it's going to look good. You may think this is weird, but like, for instance, like she wanted to do a pink kitchen, right? Like originally, and I talked her off of that, but like she wanted to do some pink accent walls. I'm like, no. She's like, trust me, it's going to look good. So I'm like, okay, all right, if I'm not going to do the pink kitchen, we're good. Like, let her have the pink accent, things like that. But the challenge is the kids. Like, so we have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so all the things we used to do, like we would do all the work originally, right? So whether it was like demo or framing or painting, we did it. And so now we just can't, right? Because multiple reasons, right? Like it's either nap time, like they're off on different schedules, so you can't be loud. Napping. We, if they're both awake and we can be loud, one of them's going to be into something. Like they're grabbing my tools or my drill bits or like screws or they're in paint or like something, right? So that's the hard part is the kids, right? So we got to that point where we, you call enough contractors, you start, this too, right? You build up kind of the Rolodex of, who does what, who does it really well.
Yeah.
And there's an extra expense there, but you kind of just, it's like we have no choice to go down that path, right?
So I think if we haven't built up our network, right, if we didn't do that over the last 7 years, it'd be pretty tough. Or projects would just take forever. Like you can only do so much.
So many, at one time.
You know, say that kind of like the network equals your net worth, right? Super important, right? They have the right connections. Where do you seem to find these people you're talking about, these contractors? Where do you find them? What's your go-to?
Couple different places. So it's funny, like my wife's father, right? My father-in-law. So he taught me a lot of what I know and how to get started in real estate. So he has plumbing license, electrician's license, HVAC license.
Who's this guy? Can we get his number?
So he would be like, when we needed to do something, he's like, oh, I can come over and I can show you how to do it. Or like, hey, I've got a guy that can help you. And so we started calling around like that. So we built up our network like that. And then, we've met really good contractors just walking through Lowe's. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's a good way
you walk, and it's funny how many of these guys are like, they work at Lowe's. Like, hey, like I know a guy, or like, hey, actually, on the side I have a contracting business, and we install flooring or tile or whatever, right? And so we've called those guys and we've given them a project, and it may not be like a massive project, but it's big enough for them to figure out, like for us to figure out, are they any good? And so we'll have them do it, and see if they're any good.
Exactly.
And you kind of vet your people that way. But I think, sometimes if you don't have a guy, you Google and you call around, and it's those people that. It's super simple, but like, do they answer the phone? Do they return a phone call? Right? Are they when they say they're going to show up, do they show up?
Yep.
That's like 90% of the issue is like just getting in touch with people. And having them
So
call
you
back.
gotta have a story, right? We all have stories. So what's your contractor,
story.
bad contractor story that you've come across? So you've been investing for 7 years?
Gosh, I think it's been about 7 years.
7 years, okay.
Yeah.
So in this 7 years, let us have it. Like, what's that story that you're like, let me tell you about this.
Nightmare in the Gibson house.
You know, I don't think we have. I just honestly, I don't think I have any terrible contractor stories to this point. No one's left us high and dry. We've had people say they're going to show up and they just, you know, they kind of ghost me for a couple weeks or things like that. But we've never really been out. It's all worked out. Luckily, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx this. You know, like we're getting to the point where we're hiring a lot of stuff out, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Have you had to fire anybody?
I've just not worked with contractors.
Just not worked with contractors.
Yeah. I haven't fired anybody.
I know. It is one of those things. It's like once they do the job, am I willing to work with them again? Sometimes no, but like a lot of the times yes. So it's just interesting, you know.
Well, now I just put them alongside like Kurt or Shannon, and if they don't pass that test, then I don't really have the time.
Right.
I gotta keep Shannon happy. I gotta keep my guy happy. So
that's
are you gonna keep house hacking? Or are you done now? Are you gonna stay in that one?
So that's kind of the big question, and like what's gonna happen next. So, for tax purposes, I want to stay in this one for 2 years.
Okay.
So any sort of capital gains we have on the tax or on the house, we wouldn't pay tax on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe tell us who's watching here. Tell us like what is that project you're working on currently?
So we just in October, right? So it's March now. We just moved to a new house. I guess scope of the project. It's a $340,000 house that we purchased as a large renovation project. Numbers right now look like it'll be somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 renovation.
I say $60,000 kitchen.
Right, so like I say 125. My wife says no, it's gonna
half
be 150 for sure.
Yeah.
And so half is the kitchen, really large, master bathroom. That's gonna be most of it. We're adding another bedroom. We're doing all new windows. Like everything becomes more expensive when you have such a large. It's a 3,000 square foot house, and so it's a pretty big house. We've never redone all the windows, like just the windows itself. I mean, if you go like high end windows, I mean, we got quotes for $40,000 on windows, and so
how many windows?
Between windows plus sliding door, I think there are probably 18 windows, 18 to 20.
Jeez.
Between like sliding door, front door, windows. Yeah. So it's
that's more than $1,000 a window.
Yeah. Well, that includes install. Right.
Yeah.
So that's high end. That's the Pella quote.
Yeah.
That's like the
top end.
The premium, and then we're like, okay, where can we bring that number down? What quality of windows do we want to put in here, right? But like that's the thing is how I think.
So you purchased for 300.
We purchased for 340.
340. You think you're gonna have 150
in?
Assume we have 150 in.
150 in. So what's your
all in
490? I think based upon what we've seen per square foot, what we can build that house for, you're low sixes, and so I'm thinking probably list somewhere around 620 based upon the current market.
Yeah.
You couldn't replace a house for that. Couldn't build it for that. Price per square foot falls in line with that. It's one of those things where it's like, least nicest house in the nicest neighborhood type thing. So, we're insulated a bit from that. It's a desirable area. So I think unless we have a really big market correction, we should be fine with a 2 to 3 year type turnaround. But it's just our personal house. There's other things we want to do, but
so you're looking to be there for 2 or 3 years?
Probably 2 or 3 years, unless the market corrects and it forces us to stay longer. Based upon
don't make me stay in this $500,000 house.
It's so funny, right? Like it's so funny the things you think about that changes. Like when you do houses, we've had, you know, houses with massive yards and fenced in and not fenced in, and we've had a, you know, house with a swimming pool and all these sorts of things that you think about. And now you know, you figure out what you want, what you don't want. You give some of those things up, knowing that what you're moving into isn't going to be a forever home. And then when you are ready to do that, like now we're getting to the point where we, you know, the next thing is thinking about building a spec home, like developing or doing something
just the way you want it.
Yeah, like or maybe a little bit differently than people are doing today. Like what's kind of my niche? What's our thing? And I between Caitlin's design and hopefully you know, finding that right, you know, area or you know, piece of ground or neighborhood, right? It'll be successful. That's, you know, it's funny, right? Because I think that's just the least risky thing we think about, is just because it's close to us. Not necessarily is it the best move, but it feels like it's safer that way. You know, if it's right there, if it's right in our backyard. So I think.
Is that what you want to say, his names? Or if she was okay to move, would you move to?
I'd move. You know, I would move. I think, you know, we've stayed around. Her family's there. My family's close. You know, within 40 minutes. So it's a nice place. We really like it. But we move. You know, everything's open. Like, I just want to follow the opportunity.
So what's the next opportunity you're looking into, or what interests you outside of, I guess, the single family luxury remodels?
So what we've thought about doing next, I think, you know, every project we want to do a little bit bigger. We want to continue to grow and take some risk. I think probably next is, I don't know, like what's exciting is building new. I think as we it's, you know, I think we've done so many renovations that when I just think about, like, in my mind, the process of building new, you have a clean slate, it's a fresh start. You don't have to fix stuff that somebody did wrong or that may take extra time to fix what was previously done. Like, it's just a blank slate. You can do it exactly how you want from day one. What's desirable, what, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's exciting. There's a lot of stuff. It's almost like...
Have you looked into it quite a bit then? I didn't know that you were thinking about that.
Yeah, there's still a lot of I don't know what I don't know type thing. But I think there's a lot of, like, just where's the ground, what's the ground cost? Financially, what do I need to bring to the table to do the build? What's a bank going to require? But, like, once, you know, say that's figured out, we still have to figure out who are my subs, like who's going to do the foundation and who's going to do the dirt work. Who are the crews that not only can do it but do a good job and that have, you know, the openings in their schedule to be willing to do it, because I think there's, you know, right now there's so many people that want homes built that they can pick and choose what they do. And I think if you're a new builder, you're not on the priority list, they don't know who you are. It's its own thing. And so it's breaking into that could be pretty difficult. So we're, you know, going into that, figuring out, do we have the contacts in the network that would help us get to that point of becoming a priority on these people's lists, like actually getting the work done. So that's the hard thing. Like, you know, you're growing into that area. I think when I got into real estate, you know, we started with single family homes, and I thought, I want to start, I don't know, it's kind of like the bigger pockets method, where it's, you know, buy a couple single family homes and buy a duplex and a fourplex and an eightplex and
just grow.
You stair step that way. But I think, I don't know, our market is a certain way. It's kind of difficult, right? You know, the Ames market.
Ames is.
It's its own thing. And so, to do that in that market can be fairly difficult. And I think what I'm just generally interested in is new construction next. It's super exciting to me. So there's a lot to figure out with it, but I'm excited to figure it out.
I'm not sure what Ames is like for market, but Des Moines, I mean, the inventory is so low, right? So we're like sitting at right at 1,700 homes for sale in our Des Moines Area Association Realtors market, which is crazy, right? And thankfully, we have new construction. You know, I mean, that is the driving force right now, because nobody's selling their houses right now. And so thankfully we do have builders in this area, like yourself, that's wanting to pursue that, because from a standpoint of the actual real estate industry in a whole,
we need that.
we need that. We need guys like yourself that are willing to take that risk, because ultimately building materials, it costs everything. I mean, we're helping a client right now build a house, and it's just almost daily. They talk once a week, and they kind of say, okay, prices did this, we got to do this, we got to make changes. You got the supply chain issues, you got the labor issue. Try to find subs like you're saying, and so it's obviously a challenge. So anybody that wants to build a house, I'm like, do it.
Is it easier to sell new builds than it is? I feel like that's just a whole different price point than the majority of people buying houses, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the right now, I think nationally, I think the average right now is $353,000.
Is the purchase price?
Average.
Is the average purchase price?
Purchase price right now. In Des Moines market, it's probably more like 250, 255. And so, unfortunately right now, you can't build a house for $250,000.
Right.
So the average homes, you can't, the average, first-time home buyers can't purchase those type of homes, unfortunately. And so we've kind of, the last, year, it's really shifted where these people, where they go, and so, so the problem is, with people that not wanting to sell their houses, okay, so if they don't have new construction to move into, then they're not gonna sell their $250,000 house.
Exactly.
Which is just,
Because they don't have anywhere to go.
they don't know where to go.
Mhm.
So everyone's, it's kind of a bottleneck right now of like, but thankfully we are getting, in the Des Moines market, we are getting, more and more builders that are trying to navigate through this very tough times.
So one of the ways, I was thinking about this is, so my realtor came to me and he's like, hey, have you thought about this? You want to do this? We kind of started talking about this. Hey, do you want to build a spec home? I was like, okay, sounds exciting. I'd like to do that. That could be kind of the next thing. So we talked about it more. And so, for instance, he has, three home buyers that they are not able to get their homes built. They've approached, the local home builders, and they're like, no, we're full. Like, we don't need any more projects. We're full. We don't want any more projects. And so they can't get their houses built. So he's like, here's a way where, in some of the cases, I think there's three separate folks that want a house built, but, they don't have their plans in hand, right?
They don't.
They do. So they've had an architect go through their plans. They put everything together. So it's essentially, it may not be like a way for me to do like a true spec home of like, hey, this is my custom home, my touch, here's what we do. But it's a way to essentially go into the process with less risk, because it could be essentially pre-sold.
Pre-sold, backed by somebody else,
And then at that point, we just work backwards on like, cost per square foot, and what's the finished cost per square foot, what can we get it built for, and go from there. I think that's the fear too, is like, if I go into the process not having a buyer, do I want it a super fancy home, right? And
they could sit there,
but I don't want it to sit on the market. That it's like
costs,
such a small buyer group that would buy the house. It has to appeal to so many people, so that's hard. Like that's
it's a balance,
figuring out the fine line of that. So
this is the first house that I ever did where I did things the way I wanted them to be done, rather than trying to appeal to the masses.
isn't that the best feeling?
It was,
It's the best.
I was like looking at things.
It must have been because of your agent. You just knew, right?
You can't fix it right without buying it right.
You just bought it right, buddy. Helped you out there. Come on, man.
We did get it for a good price.
Yeah, you did.
So it listed at $199.
It was, they lowered it from like 210 to 190.
$199.
And then
First offer was $175 with 5,000 buyer's credit, and then we
just
came back.
beat him up.
We came back at
Right, it's like,
160
hey,
to 10,000.
Let's do this. I'm like, what do you mean do this? We can't do this.
It worked.
He's like, nah, I think we can do this. And I'm like, all right, we got through it, and then here comes the inspection. Inspector basically, pretty much came and said, hey, there's a lot, which we knew.
We knew, yeah.
But then it just kind of added to the flame and be like, Let's add another $10,000. So you get it what, 150?
I got 150. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got. 160 and then 10,000.
Yeah.
We have. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It was amazing.
So what's your numbers on the house look like?
I think I'm in like 45, creeping up on, coming up on 50. I thought I was gonna get closer to 60, but we saved a few things, and I didn't have to put as much into the bathroom. Kurt did a really good job. His contractor on the electric. Yeah.
ARV.
250. Yeah. That's what I want to refinance. I'm starting to refinance money because now I got all this money in here and like broke, so we're pulling some of that out.
Dude,
So
it's all about being creative and figuring out where can I pull the money from, where can I put
to
it,
go to the
can I,
next one.
how liquid is that,
Yeah.
and where can I go next? And that's like the struggle. I mean, like no one has unlimited money, so it's figuring out how to do it, how to shuffle it, how to be creative, and having multiple houses, right, has allowed you to get more creative because
So
there's
really,
more strategy.
I think that's something you speak to because I think there's a lot of people, everybody's like, man, I would love to do something like this. Maybe I'd love to be able to buy these single family homes and flip them or buy and hold or whatever house hack. But you can have all these wonderful ideas, but there's this thing called financing and the whole bank issue, right? And you have to have cash, maybe unless you're Ethan, but you got to have a way to purchase, right? And so let me ask this. I mean, from your experience, maybe back up to maybe your first. So I think everybody's always wanting to know, okay, how did this guy get started? Maybe with his first property. Maybe tell us where you were at economically, from your career standpoint.
Sure.
Age,
all that stuff. I know it was 7 years ago, so you're gonna have to tell us your age. But and then kind of what that looked like and how you went about it. Maybe what the lender, what the program was, and how you financed it.
So I'm trying to remember back on like my finances, right? So like I was.
Which house was this?
This was right on Lincoln Way, right in Ames. Long gravel driveway. It's the first one you saw.
That's the one I saw. That's how we
first
met.
one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So was this a owner occupied? I mean, you purchased to own it, or did you purchase it for?
So we moved in primary residence. It's funny because we had tried multiple different businesses. At that point in time, we'd done so many different types of ventures and trying to create income and trying to hustle and doing whatever. We had a year and a half prior to buying the house, we had bought a vending business, and then because that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, vending machines, right? Yeah. Pop and candy. Yeah. And we had 6 total machines when we started. And in a year and a half, we doubled the business, and then found out we really don't like to do that. It's really hard. It's like logistically, time, everything is hard with it from multiple reasons, right? Like you're hauling around pop and chocolate and candy. Costco, in the wintertime, if you leave pop and stuff in your truck, it's gonna freeze and bust. Like it's gonna be terrible. In the summer, you can't leave your candy bars in the truck because it's gonna melt. Yeah. And so it's like the time commitment to do it is kind of all over the board. And if I have somebody else do the route, can I really trust this person to service the machines, pull the money out, not start like skimming money off the top? Like it's all cash, pretty much, right? Like there's credit card machines, and we had some, but that's what we did, right? And so we had sold the business. We made a little money, but at the end of the day, it's peanuts. So we ended up getting in our first house, and we got married and bought our first house within like a week of each other. It all happened all at once. Like got married, went on vacation, or went on honeymoon, and then bought our house. It was a $145,000 house. Needed a lot of work. We knew that's what we wanted to do. It was close to campus. We bought it as our primary residence, knowing we're going to renovate this and rent it. Like that's going to be an income source for us.
Yeah, okay.
But we're going to renovate it while we live there. We're going to live through a mess, and it was a mess. And
was that easy for the girlfriend to be about that, because like, you hear that from all the time. Oh, my girlfriend wouldn't be about that, or I got kids, I can't
Well,
house
this was
back.
your wife, so
Your wife, yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. I sold her on the vision of it. I'm like, hey, this can be this good. Like,
So it's a
you know.
good
So,
sales
so
pitch.
sell us on
Cast
the
the
vision. Sell us on
So-
the vision to the people listening, because I've heard that so many times. Oh, my girlfriend wouldn't be able to do that, and it's like, well, I don't.
Well, and I think one is the promise of this could really put us in the right direction financially, provide income, and it's the first step of replacing our income. So we don't have to go to work. We don't, necessarily have to go to a full-time job. And this is the first step of getting there. We have to do something. I don't want to put my money in a retirement account hoping it's going to grow. I want to have more control of it. I want to manage it myself, those types of things. So it's what I was naturally drawn to. Like, I wanted to do real estate. I tried a bunch of businesses. Some succeeded, some failed. A lot failed. More failed than succeeded. But real estate was what we just kind of both liked, and she liked the idea of getting to be able to design the house, right?
Yeah.
Paint colors and all, carpet and tile and all these sorts of things. So we did that. It was but what we did was we found a house that was bad enough to fix, but not awful for our first fix.
But okay to live in.
Yes, right. So for instance, this so this specific house had newer windows, so we didn't have to touch windows. It had a new roof, so we didn't have to touch the roof. Newer carpet, so that was fine. So structurally it was fine. It also had a basement that we could basically remodel and add another bedroom and a bathroom down there. So we could force some appreciation into that property by adding a bedroom and a bathroom. And that's exactly what we did. Now, we didn't know what the market was going to do, specifically with the Ames market. They came out with different moratoriums, and there were certain areas, all these really goofy rules that came to be after the fact.
And this was what year?
16, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. July of 2016.
2016.
Yeah. Lots changed since then, but and so a lot of things we didn't know, obviously were going to change, but I think that's the thing we were looking at, right? So based on the square footage, can I improve the house and force some appreciation into it? If I do that when we move, can I still make the property cash flow? Which we could. And so, we felt like buying your first house is super scary in general, but we felt like it's a calculated risk where we could, if we had to rent it or we were going to rent it, does it financially make sense? And can we force some appreciation into it? Yes. I think the hard thing is once you decide to do it, and you're like, okay, let's do this. It's like, where do I start? We had no tools. We didn't know what we were doing, and so
it sounded like you had a lot of exit strategies. You were definitely
calculated risk. I mean, for us at that point in time, I don't know how you find a decent $140,000 property today. Obviously, those don't really exist at all. At the time, that was kind of a cheaper property, maybe middle of the road, and still scary to us. But we also looked at it too from a renter's market, because our rent was more than our mortgage. So we felt like, hey, we're already in a better position monthly because our mortgage payment's less than what we were paying in rent. Granted, it's scarier because you can't just, if you don't like it, you can't just move out. Like, it's your house. So you gotta take care of it, right? You gotta take care of it. So we just took calculated risk, and we knew we were both all in. We both said, hey, we're all in, we're gonna do this. And we went to town, and it took a year. We stayed there a year.
So you bought it for 140.
I think we ended up paying 140.
How much did you have into it? How much money do you have for repairs?
I think we were probably, somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 30 grand.
Okay.
30 grand in that
For the first
property.
one?
Yeah, 25 to 30 grand.
Okay. And that's no labor because you did it all yourself.
That's no labor.
That's
right?
just materials.
That's material and appliances and flooring and all that sort of
So
stuff.
for somebody else, what would that have cost them?
It would probably be another, maybe, I don't know, $15,000 in labor, probably $10,000 to $15,000 in labor. So I guess we had some savings, right? Some built in.
Sweat equity.
Right, sweat equity at that point. But it was hard. It was super hard. But I think.
How'd you get to the next one then?
Real quick, so you had it, bought it for 140, you had about 30-ish into it.
Yeah.
How long were you in it?
We were in it for a year.
For a year, and then what did you end up selling for?
We still have it.
You still
we still
have
have
it?
it
You
today.
still have the first one, yeah.
So what's it?
So we put it on the market, and I think it's pending for like 222.
Oh, it's on now.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you just
So we still have it. Closing may be delayed a little bit, but yeah.
You sold it for, what was it pending
It's
for?
222.
222.
so what's your net?
So
Phil
I
Bean,
mean,
man.
we'll net. So here's the deal, right?
Show us the
Because
money.
we-
What's the
we may make 50 grand on it.
Yeah.
Right, but
50 G's,
but,
maybe.
I think.
See, that's what I like to hear.
Here's so perfect example of like, hey, you can make all this money, you can sell a house, but alternative, let's say we kept it, right? So like, say I'm cash flowing, I don't know, what are we cash flowing? Maybe let's just say 700, 800 bucks.
That's why you're cash flowing on the property right now?
Yeah.
For a single family?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
We're close to $1,000, which is a great cash flow property.
That's
Yeah.
great.
But we're a little,
And you sold it?
we so here's the thing, right? We're moving money around to potentially do the
That's
next
next.
thing.
Yeah,
you know?
the next big thing.
We're to the point where, you know, like every house, and I think this is the thing you got to think about is even if you're cash flowing, because we refinanced, we did a bunch of stuff, and our cash flow looks better now than it did, right? Because when rates dropped, we refinanced, and cash flow was great.
Yeah.
But we're to the point where, you know, to get a new letter of compliance for the city, we had to put a $6,000 driveway in. So like, say you're making $500-600 a month,
That's your whole year of
you're
cash
done.
flow.
Like you one thing, and that's not even a fix. Like that's not even like, hey, my boiler went out, or hey, like appliances, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the thing. Like we're kind of weighing is like the cash flow looks good, but we put the driveway in, we spent a bunch of money there. We're to the point where we have to do siding. So like maybe I'm gonna spend 10 grand on siding. You know how much rent, like how much longer do I have to hold the property? And I mean that's the thing, right? You could hold it forever. You could continue to reinvest, and it's a great lot. It's a great property, but do we have a better opportunity if we were to sell the house and reinvest that money somewhere else? And I think that's where we're at now. It's figuring out, does it make sense? And I think it does, based upon.
Well, you
based
already
upon
got an
my-
accepted offer. So.
Yeah.
It better make sense. I gotta figure out how it's gonna make sense. With a lot of it is like trying to be creative and taking a calculated risk. The hard thing is, you know, my wife stays at home, takes care of the kids. So my risk tolerance is dropped a little
It's
bit.
dropped a little bit.
Because I can only afford, right? So like I can't go into a deal saying I can lose all this. Like I can't lose all of this.
right.
One, this is retirement, but two, it's income that helps us
Stay
survive
afloat right
on
now.
rental income plus W-2 income plus any other thing we're doing, crypto or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's
Well,
a
it
hard
sounds
thing
like-
to balance, right?
It's
You
not
gotta
like,
balance
you analyze every property. It's not one size fits all, right? So I mean, there's so many components, right, of investing into a home, and you have to. I mean, I got a lot of investors, friends that are buying new construction. He's like, they hardly have any cash flow. But
Yeah.
their theory is, we have no maintenance. You know,
Sure.
we don't have that cost, so we're just really going to the appreciation play. Other people focus on the cash flow, obviously, but it gets to a point where you have to make that decision. Like, man, this is getting old. The furnace is about ready to go out. The AC can go out.
Mhm.
The roof. You start adding this up. Like, my God, that's 20-30 grand.
They can
Yeah.
come at any time.
That could come at any time. You're like you said. I mean, it could take 3, 4, 5 years
Right.
just to get back to kind of square one, and then you're good to go from there. But then there might be something else that comes up.
Right. And I think
That's a great point.
And it's the thing of like, it's slowly, when you do that, when you own real estate, and you guys know this, right? It slowly starts to get easier because as you have more houses, they can sort of balance. Like if you have this one terrible investment, maybe it's not that terrible, but maybe it just ate up all your profit. You have a couple other 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever houses
To
that
outweigh,
balance that out.
balance.
For sure.
The odds of them all being huge money pits all at once are pretty slim, but it can happen. So, you know, there's a big difference. There was a big difference for us between when we had one house and then, you know, when we had 5.
Yeah, so what you guys have right now is 5 rentals?
We have, well, right now we have, how many do we have? 3 rentals? 3? I think 3 rentals right now. So.
And then your primary?
And then our primary. Yep. All of them have been a project. We have lived.
Yeah, how many times have you moved? How many times have you house hacked?
We've pretty much moved every single year.
Yeah, that's what I asked. We've been doing it the
6 or
same.
7
Yeah,
years.
6 or 7
That
years.
is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is great.
So, you
But
know.
I mean, every time you've kind of moved up, I would assume,
Yes.
right? So
Right.
now you're
Oh,
at, you're
yeah.
basically a $500,000.
Do you have any
house.
pictures of your?
I have a listing photos.
Okay,
I have
yeah.
some plans that we've designed.
Okay, we'll throw those in there. You gotta see them. They're
yeah, that's
amazing.
sweet.
Yeah.
We'll throw it in.
So I
That's
guess
interesting.
one of the things, you know, Ryan, one of the things that I always think of is the naysayers, the people that say you can't do this, the people that say, you know, I tried that, or my Uncle Bob did this and he went broke, and you know, you always have these, I call them crabs in a bucket. You know, people like crabs. You know, you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, they'll just stay in the bucket because they'll jump. Once one jumps, they grab each other and pull them down.
Yeah,
You put
sure.
one crab in, he'll jump out. But it's kind of this, people are kind of like crabs, right? So you always have
Sure.
these people around you that maybe didn't think this was a good idea. Like, man, you're crazy. Why would you do that? You want to deal with tenants? Oh man, you know. What do you say to those type of people that are maybe wanting to maybe get into real estate like yourself?
Well, I think the hard thing, well, maybe not the hard thing. When we got into real estate, my situation was very similar. Like, I didn't come from a family that did any sort of real estate investments. So they could look at it as like, that's a risky investment.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're doing this type thing, but I just, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew my end goal, and I just tried to work backwards from there. Right? Like,
That's awesome.
do the numbers make sense? Do I have, you know, multiple different exit strategies if this goes south? You know, if it's a calculated risk, can things really, you know, how bad is this house? Like, how much work does it need? Am I getting it over my head? And, you know, you slowly start to realize that's why we didn't want a terrible house for our first house. But we wanted one where we could add space in the basement for an extra bedroom and bathroom, things like that. And, you know, we didn't know financially what that meant at the time. We didn't know exactly what it made. You know, we thought maybe the house might be worth exactly what we put into it, and we can sell it and we can get our money back out of it. We might not lose any money, right? But we can get more put in it, right?
And you'll learn.
But we get the experience. Like, I think everybody's got to go through that. So
was it friends or was it more family that were the naysayers, I guess, that you had to deal with?
You know, I don't think anybody probably, you know, to my face said like, hey, you're crazy, why are you doing this? Because we knew why we were doing it, didn't really matter. But I think a lot, and you probably feel
And you're, how old were you? How old were you? 20?
20, what was it, 26?
26. So you're a little bit more,
Yeah.
you're not
so-
18, 19, 20. I mean, you were 18?
No, that's 20 when I started studying real estate.
So-
23 bought my first one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so you're younger, you know, so I think that
I look
probably,
younger too.
I'd looked at real estate, and I get to the point where we kept looking. I'm like, I want to do it, but like, I was so scared. I was like, I can't. This is
I'm so scared.
a $200,000 house
Yeah.
back 6 years ago terrified me. I was like, dude, I don't know, how could we get rents? Do I make any money? What's going on? And we looked at this duplex. Like, looking back on it, there's this one property, man. I wish I would have had it to this day. I wish we put an offer in, but we were so scared to even put the offer in. It didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. It would have been this amazing property, right, to this day. But so I think a lot of it was like talking ourselves into it, because I think we, you know, we didn't want to mess up. It's not like we could afford to mess up, but we really didn't want to mess up. So we thought, how could we take the least amount of risk possible and still potentially have a really successful investment? And
Well, I think we're kind of all in that spot where we can look back just like a couple, 12 months, 18 months ago, and like this type of deals or the size of deals we're doing. What's that feel like for you guys, I guess, now to, I mean, we just analyzed, or all three of us went and looked at that $3 million deal in Kansas. Like, that's just the access to what we're having now is so different. It's and it came so quickly. Well, I guess it didn't after 7 years, but I mean.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like people will look like, oh, he's so successful. Like it just happened. It's like it didn't just happen. We've been all working really hard at this for a long time.
Yep.
And so, you know, I think you read a lot, you listen to podcasts, you try to just kind of, I don't know, drown yourself in all this information and data and what can I do better, what can I do right, how can I get creative on these strategies, based upon what is available in my market. What can I do? Like maybe it's commercial, maybe it's land, maybe it's something else, and what can I get into? And I think for somebody that's just getting into it, that's the hardest thing. Is there's a lot of people that I feel like right now there's a lot of this going around, like, hey, you need to wholesale houses.
Good Lord.
And there's a lot of really junk wholesalers, and it's not like they're necessarily shady, but there's a lot of people they don't know the market, they don't have the right tools. So when somebody calls, who are they calling? Who are they talking to? What property do they own? So they'll act lost. You know, they don't know how to talk to people.
Don't know how to analyze.
Right?
Cost of rehab,
Which I think can give wholesalers a bad name, but I think wholesaling in general is not necessarily all that easy to get started at.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to get started without any money. Obviously, you don't have to have any money to wholesale. Maybe marketing, somebody like a few $100 for marketing, but
so there's clearly, because one of the things I always think about, you guys maybe could answer this too, because I think one of the things is there's so much information. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now, right? There's all this information now. I call it noise. There's noise
everywhere.
Everywhere you go, anything you search, there's all this content. You know, all this information, which is fantastic because years ago we didn't have that. Yeah. However, because of the noise, because of all that content, it almost creates paralysis, right? You get so much information, and you're like, what's my next step? So, what would you say to a new investor that has same basically access as we do right now? There's tons of information out there, but how do you help them take a little bit of it and then dial it in to just help
execute
them take action? Like, how does a new person do that? Is it through a coach? Because that's another thing. My gosh, anybody will coach you, and they'll charge this.
Extra.
There's a lot of those guys out there that will for this amount of money will tell you exactly. I mean, we did the Fortune Builders, thousands. Yeah. Thousands.
I did Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was $15K.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great. Not knocking these programs out there because I think, but once again, from my point of view, I remember I like dudes to sit right next to me. You know, I like people around me like this. Yeah. That I can
talk with, call off. Yeah.
And then, hey, let's go look at what you're doing. I mean, what do you say to that? I mean, that's what my recommendations is get around it. Get around people that are doing it. Ask them questions. I mean, I think Ethan, you're like perfect for that because it seems like you're going to Dallas here, you're going over here, but you're flying all over the country to get around these people that are doing things in real estate.
I mean, I think that's the thing. I think there's a lot of value in a coach. There's a lot of value in a mentor. What mentor you go with. I mean, there's a lot of gurus online that will tell you to do something it may be junk, total junk. Yeah. But if you can find like a local RIA or what you kind of started to do, and then you absorb things, right? Like you're just a sponge. You absorb all the information, you latch on, and you're just like willing to provide value, or you've analyzed deals and you're willing to share what you know and take the criticism of they're like, hey, actually, I think this is a pretty good deal, or they'll tell you it's not because of this.
You forgot,
you totally didn't assume this, and then you're like, oh gosh, I never thought about this, and then the next deal you analyze, it's that much better. So I think people that may not necessarily be able to buy their first house yet, or they don't know the next step, but they want to get involved in real estate, I think they can look to local clubs and figure out if there is local clubs. Ames again is a little bit weird.
Yeah, but you can normally drive a couple hours to your largest city, and that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to, after a long day at work, they don't want to drive 2 hours each way to go to, and I get that, but then you don't want to get out of that 9 to 5.
Well, I think that's a big thing too, right? Like you have to be willing to do the work. I mean, it takes work. Like and we just naturally, it never bothered us. Like it never bothered us. Like we did. I mean, you fight here and there. You're like, man, everything's a mess. And then because we were house hacking, we were living in it. You know, we'd fix it and it'd be great. And then we'd move into another mess. Like as soon as it gets nice, we move. But we knew that's what we signed up for. That's what we want to do. That's the business we're building, and that's what we did.
It's nice that you two had each other to kind of lean back on that.
I'm great. I mean, I still tell her, I'm only as successful as you let me be.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff you put up with that you probably wouldn't have to put up with if you didn't want to, and we wouldn't get along. But it's a great match, and I think it's probably one of the reasons why we didn't get married for as long as we did, because we were together for years before.
Yeah.
Like we did the vending business together.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm like, okay, is she solid, or like, are we gonna get along? Can we do like really hard things together? Are we gonna both be willing to sacrifice? And it is like, so last night, I mean, we were up until 11 o'clock last night taking 30-year-old wallpaper off the wall. I mean, because we had to get that done for the next step for our drywaller to come, because he's going to texture all our walls.
Mm-hmm.
So like, we didn't have a choice.
Right.
Like, kids are in bed, instead of sitting down and having a drink on the couch, like we're on the ladders taking drywall.
Get your scraper.
Taking wallpaper off the walls. It's like, yeah, like we're taking wallpaper down. It's not glamorous. It's not great. Like I'm in the basement pulling water lines. I ripped a toilet out, ripped a vanity out, so the bathroom's already, it's gonna get gutted. So it's like that type of stuff. You just, I don't know, you just do it. You're in the moment. And I don't know. This is what you do.
Let's real quick. I want to hear your thoughts on like giving people advice to how they get started. I mean, I know we were talking about going to the RIAs, and I mean that's how I know both of these guys. I kind of latched as soon as I met both of you. I latched on. I let it.
Yeah.
I was vulnerable. I was like, I'm gonna spend time around you guys, and just made it a priority. And now, pretty much whenever I call you guys, if you don't answer, you're calling me back that day. So I just think it takes being vulnerable almost.
I think everyone has that, you know, everyone was there one time. Sometimes you gotta have that, remember what it was like to be new. And I think, you know, the more, I think this is in general speak with anything, but the more you become more and more successful at something, you gotta remember where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key, is like, cause I still remember, you know, staying up all night, just studying and trying to go through all this content, right? All this information and just being absorbed, like, whoa, what do I do with it? And I think the key is mentorship. I think you have to really figure out who you want to listen to, because, you know, and that person who you're talking to has to have a vested interest in your success. As a person, as a professional, as a friend, you know, as a, you know, whatever the case be that person is to you, so you know you can buy into them. And I think, you know, when Ethan and I met you, I mean, we didn't really know each other. You were excited. You drove 40 minutes to come see a project that we were doing, flipping, and you're like, can I buy you lunch? And we went to Perkins.
It was a long day, yeah.
Right? It's like 2 to 3 hours, and we just sat there, drank coffee, and he was just like, you know, writing everything down, and just like a sponge to me. And then, you know, it kind of made my ego make me feel good too. You know, it's like, hey, I want to be able to pour into this young entrepreneur, because he has a drive, man. There's so many people out there that are, you know, have victim mentality, and they don't want to go work. Here's a dude that wanted to work, and I'm like, so anybody that shows any of that to me, like, here, I'm a softie, man. I'm like giving back. I want to be able to help, you know, and I always tell them, you know, the information or the advice I give you is as much as I charge you, you know, so take it for what it is. I'm not charging you for it. So, but you know, just being willing to help people, I think is and being in agreement with that investor is huge. And then you can filter through, because you know, it's biblical, Matthew 18:19, the power of agreement. If you 1 and 2 people are locked solid, you can't be beat. There's something it's always going to work out. And I feel like if you don't have that one person, or, you know, a group of someone that you can bounce those ideas off, I think you're out there kind of in the ocean just trying to figure out how to do it, and you just spin your wheels. And I think it's dangerous, because I think you know, you can certainly end up, you know, this is a business that you can make a lot of money, and you can lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, especially getting started.
I think there's more people that are naturally willing to help. When we first started, we talked to a lot of people, a lot of different agents. We tried to build a lot of different relationships with the people that seemed like they were the go-to people in our area. That know the investors, that know the houses that they're going to come on the market before they do all this sort of stuff. So, we started to network with those people, and some of those people we still talk to today, and some we just don't. They're just, and you kind of work through that, and it's hard to sift through that, and that's a learning experience everyone's going to.
But I think you get good at it though. See, like some people are like the new saying, like no new friends, or like keeping a close group, and it's like no, the more people I meet, the better I am at like my BS radars. Like the better I am at understanding who's genuine. So it's like I'm getting better at identifying who I want to be in my life for longer. The more people I meet, and I look at it that way.
I was gonna say that too. Like, I think your ability to identify. I was gonna say like size up, but it's identify, right? Like
size up.
There's some people.
Ryan's out here.
Like you don't like. There's certain just like whatever like vibration, wavelength, whatever the person you are, and we just don't match. Like you may have a lot of this knowledge, you may be extremely successful, but you and I we just don't, and we ran into those people, and we just don't work with them anymore, and it's fine. Like you do your thing, I do mine, and it's fine. But it is hard. You're gonna run across that. You're like, man, I should really be in contact with these people. But I mean, if the feeling in your gut says no go, turn around. That's the thing that I've started to just listen to more. Like you just have to listen to that. Yeah.
So real quick.
Last thing, so we can wrap it up.
This up. Well, one of the things that I think we kind of talked about it, but was financing his first deal.
Oh,
we never got that answer.
9 to 5, but
and I don't think we really, maybe I missed it, but his background, what he does from 9 to 5.
Should we do financing first?
Yeah, just talk about maybe your
real quick.
So we can.
The first deal, right? So it was $140,000 house. We moved in, as a primary residence.
5% down.
I think it was even 3.5%. We were as low down as possible so we could renovate with the few dollars we had. Yeah. We did not have very much money, and so we may have had like, I don't know.
What was the credit score?
700s.
Oh,
we had good credit.
Oh wow.
But we didn't have much money.
Both of you were on the loan?
We were both on the loan. That first loan, we were both on the loan.
How'd you get the cash for the rehab?
So, some savings, right? Some savings, and then some investment money from that we had sold the venue business.
Okay.
So I think all in all, we probably made like, I don't know, gross 20 grand when we sold our vending business. Not a crazy amount of money.
Gross, not even net.
Not net. Not net. No way.
Everyone talks about the gross. They don't talk about that.
So
we don't talk about that.
So we had put 3.5% down, and then we basically had some savings that's what we renovated the house.
So when it was all done, how much cash did you have in the project?
I think we were somewhere around 25 to 30 grand in the project.
And then you're now about to capitalize on a $50,000 payday.
Yep. I think that's about where we're gonna end up.
Just normal bank financing, 700 credit score. How long was the project?
We were there for about a year. So we stayed and renovated that property for about a year.
And it took about the whole year living there with you guys in it to.
Yeah, and I remember it took a year because we found our next property. We wanted to
before
renovate.
You were done.
Before we hit that year, and the bank's like, no, you need 20%. I'm like, after 20% down, like it was 100,
like 3%.
Right, like it was like I think that house at the time was $110,000 junk.
The next
Total
one,
junk,
the next one,
right?
the second
Yeah.
one.
And I needed 20%, which at the time is it's easier to find 20 grand now than it is like back then. I'm like, I find 20 grand. I don't know, I can't find 20 grand.
Yeah.
So we got creative. We tried to refinance, pull some money out, borrow a little money. I think I ended up borrowing like 5 or 6 grand from family just to get into that next house. we found tenants, so we were lucky. We found tenants right away. Ames again has a weird rental market where everything's August to July. Like if you have a vacancy in December,
You're toast.
you may
almost.
not. That house will sit empty until July probably.
Yeah.
And so, we timed it so we could get a tenant and get in the next one. And so, I mean, we just scrape it along. We're just getting hungry, figuring out how to make it work. And we did it. We figured it out, but it's not like we made a whole heck of a lot of money. It took 4 or 5 projects before we started to really